Johnson. Thank you all for being here, and thank you to the hosts for putting on this night of civic education and participation. My name is Sydney Johnson. I'm a reporter at KQED, and before you are your candidates for District 4 Supervisor. We'll get to know them more in just a minute. I'm going to just quickly lay down the rules for tonight's forum. I know this is not the first forum for some of you here tonight. It probably isn't the first time some of you in the audience have seen some of these candidates. So we're going to just try to make it a little bit more different tonight. We'll start off with 3-minute introductions each. We'll get to share a bit about yourself and your top priorities for the district. I'm then going to go through and I have an individualized question for each of the candidates. You'll have 2 minutes to respond to those. And then we'll have questions that all of you can respond to. Again, you'll have 2 minutes for those. At the end, we'll have questions from the audience. Just to reiterate, there are cards in the back, so if you haven't had a chance or if a question comes to you during the event, please feel free to write it down and I will incorporate it into the deck that I have here. Of course, we won't get to all of them, but I'll do my best to try and elevate the ones that I see mentioned the most in the stack. Let's see what else. I guess, of course, we're trying to get a lot in tonight. So please refrain from cheering, booing, hold all of your sound effects until the end of the night. And with that, we can begin. I will call your name, so please feel free to give us your intro once I do that. And the order for all of these questions has been randomly generated, so it's going to change up every time so everyone gets a chance to kick us off each time. All right, and with that, David Lee, you will kick us off with your introduction.
Thank you, Sydney. I'm David Lee. I was born and raised in San Francisco, lived most of my life on the west side of the city, and I am an educator. I taught at San Francisco State for many years, and I also was served on the San Francisco Recreation and Park Commission, where I worked on building playgrounds and parks all over the city, but particularly here in the Sunset with the Sunset Rec Center, and the McCoppin Square, and of course Sava Pool, which I'm very proud of because Sava Pool became a model for pools built all over the city. I also was the executive director, have been executive director of the Chinese American Voters Education Committee for many years, in which I've registered over 100,000 people to vote in San Francisco and the Bay Area. I feel passionate about voter registration. That's why I've done this work for so long. Many of the people I registered are right here in the Sunset District, helping people to vote. I have 3 priorities. The first priority is to break up the monopolies, the Recology and PG&E, because our rates are too high. I also am working to fix infrastructure. We have a lot of broken infrastructure here in the Sunset, and that would be a top priority, fixing the roads, the lights, many of the deferred maintenance projects that need to get done. Also, I am a strong believer in public safety and strengthening our public safety in the Sunset. We've got to look at ways to enhance our safety, and one of them is perhaps building a substation, a police substation. I've been talking to a lot of police and law enforcement people who feel that we have a district that is the largest to cover as a police department, as a police captain here overseeing such a large territory, and we could be well served, better served with a substation that can respond to things like home invasions and other kinds of crime that happen all over the district. So thank you very much. I know my time's up.
All right, Albert Chow.
Thank you, Sydney, my old friend. Hi, everybody. My name is Albert Chow. I've lived in the Sunset for almost 50 years. Born and raised in San Francisco, started out in Chinatown at Chinese Hospital, born to immigrant parents, and after that we came into the Sunset and we opened Great Wall Harbor on Cherryville and 28th Avenue, And we've had that legacy business for 43 years, since 1983. And I can't tell you, today I just kind of walked around the room tonight, and I shook hands with people, and I said, hey, why do you look so familiar? And then I was like, I'm your customer, I shop at your store. I go, oh yeah, sorry. I thought you looked a little familiar. So great to see my customers here. And because of that, I've been here in the Sunset, and I've really served many of you. I've helped you with your problems. And then sometimes I've also been to your homes and helped you with your projects. So I think I have a real feel for the neighborhood and the people in here, not only superficially, but deeply, intimately. And so things I've done also on top of that is my community service, which is I've been with people at Parkside Sunset, which is the Terraville Street Merchants Association. I've been there for 18 years, 15 of those I've served as president. And during that time, I started with Supervisor Carmen Chu, Movies in Macaucan, which is a October event where we show movies every Friday to kids and families, and we started with like 50 people seeing movies about 14, 15 years ago. So now we get 700 people coming to those movies. And we serve food that we buy from local restaurants, and we serve popcorn and hot chocolate and whatever, and it's a really good time. I've also done Christmas tree lighting. I've also done the night market. I was one of the founding members for the Irving Night Market. I helped form the Farmers Market on 37th and Ortega. And also I've helped fight for the El Terraville project because I needed to stand up for my merchants and the community. When there was big things wrong with that project, I worked on it for 9 years with SFMTA. And still not what we wanted, and we're always kind of ignored out here, but that's the type of stuff I fight for our rights. And for me, I think that public safety, education, safe streets, clean streets, and overall housing that's right-sized for our neighborhood in this age of family zoning, I think is what's really important. And I want to work to fight for that and advocate for that in City Hall, should I get to class. Thank you.
Natalie G. Thank you so much. Good evening, beautiful people. Thank you so much for being here tonight. My name is Natalie G, and I'm running for District 4 Supervisor. I was born and raised in San Francisco, and at a really young age, my mom would take me to community meetings like this one, because she really wanted to know what was happening in the neighborhood, but she didn't speak English, so I was her translator. And that inspired me to continue my work in public service, in community service, when I was in high school, at Lowell High School, and shout out to one of my high school teachers who are here today. When I started college, I joined Chinese Progressive Association as a youth participant in a program that brought a lot of youth together from many different neighborhoods in San Francisco to work on environmental justice issues. I was later hired on as a part-time staff to help them expand their youth programs while I was finishing school at SF State. I also worked on helping low-wage workers get back their back pay and stolen wages, as well as people living in Chinatown SROs, single-room occupancy hotels, to improve their living conditions. I got the opportunity to work with 2 different supervisors at City Hall, and for the last almost 8 years, I worked for the District 10 office as the longtime chief of staff. In that office, I worked on expanding language access at City Hall, making sure that we had bilingual cops in our districts serving the community, and bringing back bus lines that were cut during the pandemic. I lived in District 4 for the last 5 years with my husband Ryan in the back, as well as our very fluffy cat Momo. We live along the end line. We are renters. We love this neighborhood. We love the Sunset. We want to make sure our future generations can still live and survive here. I'm running because I want to fight for working families, something that I have been doing for the last 20-something years. I know a lot of people say, oh, you look really young. Yeah, I do, but I also turned 40 last October, so I have a lot of experience. That being said, I want to make sure we focus on affordability. San Francisco has been such an expensive city every single day. A lot of my friends that I grew up with no longer live here because they can't afford it. I want to work on public safety, and that's in two forms. One is staffing up our police force so that they don't just rely on overtime, but also staffing our emergency response teams, like our firefighters, like our nurses, like our mental health workers, and folks that can do wraparound services. Thank you so much.
Jeremy Greco.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me here. And I want to thank all of my fellow candidates for being here. It's a pleasure to be here with you. My name is Jeremy Greco. I've lived in the San Francisco for 30 years. I've lived in the Outer Sunset for 25 years. And I've been married to my wife, Catherine, for 30 years. We raised our two beautiful daughters here, and they went to Sunset Cooperative Preschool. Until recently, my mother-in-law lived with us. She passed away this last August as my wife and daughter sang "I'll Fly Away." She had dementia which developed into Alzheimer's, and I know firsthand how difficult it is for families to juggle work, senior care, and child care, and it really opened my eyes. I grew up in Santa Cruz to a single mother, and even though she worked full-time, we relied on HUD for housing and food stamps for food. We were lucky when my stepfather came along, and he raised me like I was his only child. And he gave me the words of advice, "Let it work for you," which is something I practice every single day. For 16 years, I worked at Other Avenues Food Cooperative, and we did many things there. And for those that don't know, we're an all-worker-owned cooperative. We wrote proposals, and we made our business decisions together. Everything from buying the building, to restoring the mural, to keeping our doors open during COVID, which was a very difficult time, but it showed me how important it was to stay open and be there for the community. For the last 2 years, I have hosted Sunset Solos at a Sea Level Gallery. I saw that theaters were closing, and I wanted to step up and have a place where people could perform. And we've had people like Marga Gomez and Will Durst and the name escapes me, Josh Cornbluth. There's a lot of money being spent in this campaign, and I do not think it should take $250,000 to run for supervisor. That is not working for you. This is a 6-month gig. This type of money should not be in politics. I'm running because I believe in Sunset Dunes. I'm running because I believe in seniors, children, affordability. I'm a renter and I want to protect renter rights. I'm running to serve you. I'm running to serve District 4, and I'm running to serve the greater city of San Francisco. Thank you.
And Supervisor Alan Wong.
Hello, everybody. I'm Alan Wong, and I'm your District 4 Supervisor, appointed by Mayor Lurie in December. And it is the greatest honor of my life to be able to serve the neighborhood that I was born and raised in. My parents moved to the Sunset so that my brother and I could go to good quality schools in a safe and clean neighborhood. I went to Diablo Elementary, Hoover Middle School, Lincoln High. Eventually, I attended UC San Diego and USF. For my career, it's been dedicated to public service, serving the Sunset, serving San Francisco, and serving my country. I've served in the Army National Guard for over 16 plus years. As a National Guard officer, I've been deployed to wildfires, natural disasters, to support our state agencies, and helping support people that are in need. As policy director at Children's Council of San Francisco, I advocated for affordable childcare for all of our San Francisco communities, and have worked to support our early educators and childcare providers in our city. As a past legislative aide for District 4, I work to advocate on the day-to-day concerns of District 4 constituents, including helping constituents when COVID hit the district during the start of that period. I've also served as a union organizer, where I've fought for the wages of those workers that are in San Francisco, work to raise the California minimum wage. My priorities as your District 4 supervisor are three main things. Public safety, fully staffing our San Francisco Police Department. We have so much drug crime and retail theft in our city. People don't feel safe in our communities anymore. We need to ensure that we can get business back into our city, and so that people can feel safe in neighborhoods, and we don't go to Walgreens seeing that we have to unlock a lock just to get toothpaste. I want to cut red tape at City Hall, get rid of dumb laws. We have too many rules, regulations, and permits. People in the neighborhood feel nickel and dime and penalized for every single little thing. Let's make things simpler for everyday San Franciscans and small businesses, so they're not struggling just to comply with the rules in San Francisco. I also want to support quality public schools. That's why my parents moved here into the Sunset neighborhood, so that my brother and I could go to good schools. I've done the work supporting childcare. I've done the work as City College Board President, keeping City College free for all San Franciscans. And I'll continue to be a strong advocate for both our public and our private schools in our neighborhood. I've got Challenger to my right and to my left, and I feel that I'm just right in the Goldilocks zone. Thank you.
All right, thank you all. I failed to mention in my intro, but the questions that we're going to go through tonight, starting with some individual questions and then questions for everyone to respond to, the candidates here have not yet seen. Actually, the hosts have not seen them anyways. I am the only person who has gotten to see these questions. So thank you all so much for playing nice tonight. We're going to start off with a question for Jeremy Greco. Jeremy, you are the sole candidate who wants to keep Sunset Dunes and cars off of the Great Highway. How are you explaining that position to the district, which overwhelmingly voted to keep it open to cars?
Listen, I was originally against Sunset Dunes. I get it. I'm a driver. But last year, there's this amazing thing called Ocean Calling. And what you do basically, it's off Ortega Street, is you go up there and you make a phone call to someone who's passed along. And when my friend Barry died last year, last February 25th, the very first thing I did is I walked out there and I made a phone call. Then, when my mother-in-law passed away this past April, the entire family went out to Sunset Dunes and we all made a phone call. When a few nights later, they had a concert there. And my wife and I sat there with my daughters. The sun set and music was playing and somebody had a microphone and everyone was shouting out the names of someone who passed away. It was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen, and that shows how art can change somebody. And from there, I've walked on the Great Highway with my families, I've met neighbors, and I see that Sunset Dunes is a place to exercise, meet community, and build memories with your families. And that's how I explain it, and it's become a very, very special place for me.
Thank you. Natalie, you mentioned how staffing the police department is a priority for you. This has historically in recent years been a major issue and challenge for San Francisco. Actually, nationally, this is a challenge. So I have a two-part question for you. How would you actually work to recruit more police officers? And in the meantime, while it's still understaffed, what's your plan to fill other law enforcement duties if they're pulled off of those in order to walk the beat?
Thank you so much for that question, Sydney. I think we all deserve to feel safe in our city and in our neighborhood. And that includes making sure we do staff our police department. One of the things is that our police department is overworked. They are doing a lot of overtime, which cuts into our public budget and ends up making so that we aren't able to make other services available for our residents. So staffing is a priority. One thing is working with folks to make sure we recruit folks. Working with SFPD or SFUSD, our school district, to bring in folks on a pipeline, to recruit folks from our community so that our officers are from the community, serving the community. I did mention earlier that I want to also staff other emergency services, and we know that the cops can't be the only ones servicing our neighborhood. We need to be able to staff our emergency response teams, including our firefighters, including our nurses, including our mental health folks. I have experience bringing people across the aisle for these issues. Because of my experience at City Hall, I know how to work with folks who I may not always agree with all the time, but I can bring them to the table. But more importantly, I can bring community to the table, because that is something that I've been doing for the last 20-something years, is bringing community voices to City Hall so that we can really hear from the community and serve the community's needs. And that is what I bring to the table, and that is what I will bring to help staff SFPD, as well as all of our emergency response systems. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Supervisor Wong, San Francisco, and in particular the Sunset, has been the focus of the city's efforts to build taller and more dense buildings through the mayor's upzoning plan, which you supported. Will you be working to move forward with the affordable housing project for seniors that is on the Great Highway that's currently paused? I'm talking about the 8-story, 199-unit affordable project. Is that going to be a priority for you?
So firstly, for the family zoning plan, I supported the family zoning plan. I think that it was a responsible and practical way to move forward. The state had requirements for localities to comply with, and if we didn't comply with working towards our own prospective housing, then the state could come in and move forward with their own plan, and it was important to maintain local control. As somebody that was born and raised in the Sunset, I understand why many people move to Sunset, because they want safe and clean streets and a place where it's quiet, it's a little bit less dense than some other neighborhoods. It's kind of like the suburbs of San Francisco. And at the same time, the family zoning plan was a responsible and practical way of moving forward. For the housing developments at 1, 2, 3, 4, right?
Yep.
For that one, I have been talking to many different folks in the neighborhood about that. Recently, we met with neighbors from La Playa. I've been talking to some housing experts, and I think that I'm still developing my policy perspective on this. I guess some initial thoughts are looking at how we have different folks that live there right now. We have neighbors that told me that when they first started the project, they were informed that it was going to be for seniors, and then later on it switched to so that part of it would have a homeless population there as well, and the neighbors there have brought up those concerns to me. And I think that it's worth looking into how we place those populations together, because should people that are transitioning off homelessness be placed in a housing with seniors, or should they have a separate type of housing where they can get the support they need to transition off the streets immediately? So those are my immediate thoughts on that topic.
David Lee, SFUSD is one of the largest employers in the Sunset, and you yourself have a long background in education as a first-generation college student. Should the city be stepping up to provide more funding to the district, even as the city faces its own budget shortfalls?
I think we need to ask for more accountability from SFUSD and recognize that the current superintendent who was appointed does not come from an education background, has not had experience running a school system. I have a doctorate in educational leadership from San Francisco State. I've worked in education, public education, for my entire career. These are very important, tough jobs, and I think our current superintendent made a big mistake with the strike. The strike was avoidable. They should have negotiated. It should not have gone all the way to a strike. It costs $7 to $8 million a day every day that the teachers were on strike, and for 4 days they were on strike, 4 or 5 days. This could have been avoided. We need to ask for more accountability. And as a supervisor, I would call the superintendent to a hearing. I would make sure that our superintendent understands that we need to put kids first, we need to put our students first, and we need to take the politics out of being the superintendent. So as supervisor, I think it's very important to hold our leaders accountable. Secondly, the school board. We need to work on getting school board members elected who really care about our students, who know how to manage a school district, and to hold our school budgets in line. Right now, we have neither a strong superintendent who knows, in my opinion, knows what she's doing, or a school board who is holding the administration accountable for the mistakes that they are making.
Albert Chow, you represent merchants and small business owners, but reporting by Mission Local last year found that you forgot to file some tax returns for your nonprofit merchant group. Why should voters trust your ethics and ability to meet important deadlines in City Hall for grants, projects, and other legal obligations?
Thanks for asking that little bit of a tough question. First of all, I want to say that I was operating, as president of a nonprofit. We do not owe taxes. It's merely a filing. It's Form 990. It merely reports to IRS what you're doing, what your actions, how much money you're taking in, what you're putting out, what your balance is at the end of the year. Now, that being said, I didn't file for 2021, 22, 23, and that was because at that time it was COVID, and I also had a kid, and I kind of, I forgot to check in with my treasurer and my accountant. So that was my fault, and I took blame for that. I said that in Mission Local. I don't want to put that on anybody else. I'm president of the organization. The buck stops with me. I have since filed with a special CPA that deals with nonprofits, and I'm getting everything filed already, so that's already been taken care of. Now, other than that, the positives, I've brought lots of activities to our Sunset District. When I came into that organization, there was 5 people at the police station, the community room. That's how many people we had left in that organization that was founded in 1956. I brought it up to now, we have over 100 members. Our meetings are typically 25 to 35 members, and we have all these events that we do, as well as we advocate for the Sunset, Terralon specifically, Sunset in general. And when anyone ever reaches out to get a question to ask about the Sunset, whether it is you, Sydney, a reporter, or a government elected official or agency head, guess who gets the call? Who gets the call? It's me, because they know I run a lot of stuff in the Sunset, and I'm very well knowledgeable in what goes on there. Thank you.
Thank you. For the next group of questions, you will all have a chance to respond. Again, I will call your names. It's in a random order, so we'll get started 2 minutes each. District 4 has grown increasingly unaffordable for both residents and business owners over the years. What do you see as the solution for future generations to thrive here? Alan Wong.
For businesses and what was that?
Residents.
Residents. I think that the cost of living in San Francisco is going way too high, and rents are unaffordable for everyday people, or for a young family wanting to buy a home. It's just so difficult to survive in the city, and we need to be able to support housing for all income levels, low income, middle income, market rate as well, to ensure that we're building the affordable housing supply that we need in our city. We need to have access to all forms of housing for everybody. For our small businesses, there are too many rules. As I mentioned earlier, small businesses constantly have layers upon layers of rules. They feel nickel and dimed and penalized, and it's too hard for small businesses to do what they do best, to be creative and innovate. I want to get rid of dumb rules at City Hall. Recently, I was talking to Daniel at Smoke and D's, And he was just telling me about how happy he was just to be able to put tables and chairs outside his small business. And it was only a 15-minute permit process instead of a long process that was totally unnecessary. I think that City Hall has too many fancy ideas, too many great visionary ideas, but let's get back to basics and help normal people be able to function by simplifying City Hall, streamlining processes, and making it easy for everyday people to survive in our city.
David Lee. Same question. District 4 has grown unaffordable for many residents. What do you see as a solution for future generations?
Great that you brought up Smokin' D's. He's actually one of our plaintiffs. I organized a group of merchants to fight back against PG&E after the blackouts they caused, which created economic damage to over 100 businesses in the Sunset District. And Smokin' D's and Daniel Ramirez suffered greatly. They lost over $40,000. You know, talk about affordability for a small business to lose $40,000 because of a blackout caused by PG&E. And nobody was fighting for them. Nobody was fighting for the small businesses until I stepped up and helped organize them, first with a petition drive to sign up over 100 businesses. Secondly, calling on PG&E to increase their payments from $200 to $500, and from $2,500 to $5,000 for small businesses. Not even enough to cover the losses. And I filed with Judge Quentin Kopp a class action lawsuit against PG&E to demand that they pay back the ratepayers, the small businesses, what they have caused, the economic damage they have caused. If we don't fight when these issues come up, you know, affordability, we're gonna drive our businesses out of business. There are some that cannot make up a $40,000 loss in the span of a year. So I'm a fighter. We want affordability. I strongly believe in affordability, but we have to fight. That's why I'm also fighting Recology to break up the monopoly so we can bid out the garbage contracts, because our rates keep going up. We pay the highest rates in the Bay Area because we don't bid out our garbage. They've had a monopoly for over 90 years, and it's time to bid out the Recology contract.
Thank you. Albert Chow.
Well, I think that for what we can do for people here, to allow you to have your dreams, as I was fortunate to buy a home years ago. I bought my home just by pure luck. I was losing bids left and right. I just happened to go in on Super Bowl Sunday and nobody bid it against me. That's why I won the bid on my house, okay? I think that there has to be houses that are designed, you know, developed for prices that are affordable to people, realistic dreams for people, and not just luxury market rate homes. I mean, I get it, you know, people want to have those homes, but you know, like, who can really afford $1.5 to $2 million? That is daunting. If you don't have family backfield to help you with that first down payment, my God, it's going to be really, really tough. So that's for that. Also for school programs, I just feel like, you know, are we teaching the kids what they need for the world that we have out there in the Bay Area? There are so many industries that are so high in demand, and with really top-notch type of education. Are we producing the kids for that? I would like to see programs that parents really want to have their kids going to at SFUSD. We have 30% of our school student bodies are actually going to private school. I think that is outrageous. And that says a lot about SFUSD. They're not producing the right programs. And streamlining things for small businesses. As I know very well, getting taxed nickel and dime on all these small little things. You want to start a small business, you sign a lease, you commit yourself 5-10 years, and then you got to get your building permits, and then you got to build out. And all that time, you're not making any money, but you're spending a lot to get that going. By the time you make it to the end and you're ready to open, God help you if you still have money left to last that first 2 years to get out of the red. So I want to really work on streamlining permit processes, tax structures for our small businesses. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeremy Greco.
Thank you. Affordability in San Francisco and worrying about the future. You're looking at it. My wife and I have rented the entire 30 years of our marriage. We live in a 2-unit building that is not being protected now because of the vote Alan did on upzoning. That's 5,000 people out that won't be protected. That's 5,000 people that can be kicked out of their homes. With apartments, I feel like we need to invest in land trust as well. There's different ideas we can do out there. I think we need to build housing along the commercial corridors that is affordable, but we should look into cooperative models like land trust, where the land is owned by somebody else and it keeps the rents down. It's not speculative. With businesses, I think we need to look at a co-op model. Not everyone is fortunate enough to inherit a business or have the money to put down on a business. And I think if we had a cooperative initiative where you have some very interesting and bright people that want to start a business, they can do it together and do it democratically. And I think that is the future of businesses in general, is to run them together and become a co-op. Thank you.
And Natalie G.
I think everyone in here is part of a working family or working class, unless you're a billionaire. Even if you're retired, you were probably working really hard your entire life. So you deserve to be able to live here and feel safe here. One thing for addressing affordability is, yes, we need to build more housing, but we need to build housing that is actually affordable. That is for our workers who work at Safeway, or our workers who are working as janitors. People should not need 2 or 3 jobs to work just to survive, to live in the city. One thing that we didn't really do was expand rent control protections during the family zoning plan. In District 4 alone, there was 2,200 units of rent control units that were not protected, that are at risk of being displaced. We also need to make sure we expand childcare. I know the mayor has said that he is expanding free childcare from a measure that we did in San Francisco in 2018, but the subsidies for that will run out in 2030 something. So we need to find ways to expand that so that working families really have a chance to survive here in the city. On the small business part, we need to do more to help our small businesses from being displaced. Again, with the family zoning plan, there wasn't enough protections for our small businesses that happen to be a lot of our community anchors in District 4. We already cut a lot of red tape for our small businesses. I've worked on legislation and I've seen legislation come through the board that we cut that red tape to make it easier for folks. What we really need to do is to make protections to protect the people who are here and prevent our people here and the small businesses from being pushed out, from being priced away, from being no longer part of the neighborhood. And I have experience to make sure that we are fighting for the working class here. Thank you.
Thank you all. And now for the sexiest topic of the evening, budget deficits. Mayor Lurie just announced that the city has to cut around 500 jobs to address the city's huge budget deficit. Do you agree with the mayor's budget decision, or what would be your approach to closing the city's budget deficit? This time we'll start with Albert.
I think that, I can't look at, I don't know his numbers and I don't see what he gets to see, but if it were me, looking at an organization that's got 30,000 employees, some are retiring, maybe we can look at ways to not rehire some that are retiring, so save those positions and save money on that. Also, hiring freezes on other positions that are right now just not necessary. We can consider those later when times are better. I would also look at capital projects, really evaluate, are they really necessary at this time? Can we save those and put them off for another day, or eliminate them entirely because they're just not feasible or not needed? Other things I would look at is finding out other efficiencies. Do we have redundant positions in different departments? You know, are we doing things twice over, 3 times over? We should cut that out. Are we spending money on different things that are just not efficient or no longer necessary? Are we doing metrics on programs and nonprofits that are helping homeless or helping, you know, arts commissions or what have you? Are they really doing what they're supposed to do when they created those nonprofits? You know, I would look for those efficiencies, evaluate them, find accountability, and find metrics to measure whether they are effective or not.
Great.
Thank you.
And Jeremy?
Thank you. First off, we need a CEO tax in this town. The billionaires are getting plenty of tax breaks from Donald Trump, and we need a CEO tax to help fund the shortfall. You need to look at what we're spending our money on. I mean, we're giving, even with the parcel tax too, I want to talk about that. It's important to save Muni, right? We all think it's important to save Muni, but we're taxing the working poor. We keep on going to the workers, and I'm sorry, the middle class people too. We keep on taxing us, and we're not taxing the people that can afford it. We also just recently said we were going to give a $40 million tax cut to a hotel. And I understand that's a tax cut, but we have to see where we're putting our priorities. Also, we have to look at what we need to be spending money on, and it is healthcare. Our healthcare is going to rise in general. Our groceries are rising, our rents are rising, and we have to protect ourselves, and the people that need to pay their fair of taxes.
Thank you. Natalie?
Thank you. So I have 7 years of experience working on 7 different budget cycles with the city. In times where we had surplus, we were able to fund so many services. But this year, we are in a deficit, so we need a cut. But we also need to look into how to cut it, which includes looking into contract duplicates through the city administrator's office. It doesn't make sense that 7 different departments have different contracts for the same thing, like paper or copying. We also need to be able to raise revenues, but I'll get into that in a little bit. I do have experience bringing community to the table for budget. The mayor controls about 95% of the city's budget. The board of supervisors only controls maybe about 5% of the entire thing. And so I have the experience uplifting community concerns during the budget cycle, so that we're able to save the most essential services that serve the community. You as a taxpayer should be getting quality public services from our city. And where there's areas to reduce waste, we should be able to find those areas and eliminate them. One thing is, we need to bring in revenue for the city. We can't just keep taxing our working class folks out here. I helped put the overpaid CEO tax on this June's ballot, which does not affect our working class. It'll tax CEOs making 100 times more than their median worker, but also only if they have 1,000 or more employees for their company. In times of deficit, we should also not repeal the transfer tax, which I believe our current appointed supervisor is in support of. That tax has brought in money that is supposed to help us build more housing. This is not the time to repeal taxes that don't put that working responsibility on our working class folks.
Supervisor Wong?
Just for correction on that, I haven't taken a position on the transfer tax at this point. So that's incorrect information. I favor a mixed and balanced approach on how we handle our city's budget. I think that we need to do things in a very pragmatic and stable way. Again, there are many perspectives to the left and the right, and I think I bring an approach that's in the middle, and it's just right for the district in the Goldilocks zone. I favor the CEO tax. I do think that we can ask the ones that are benefiting the most from our city to just pay a little bit more to support our city's public services. We also need to protect our direct and core services to the community. I want to protect our police and fire. Our public safety is moving in the right direction right now. Crime is being reduced. We need to keep that going. We need fire to ensure that we're protecting our community in the case of major disaster. Behavioral health, that's important to me to get the people that are most in need off the streets. We also need to protect direct services to children, family, and seniors. In terms of budget cuts, we've all seen the headlines. There's SF Safe and many other organizations that have been irresponsible with the city's money. We need to have accountability metrics to hold those organizations accountable and to ensure that there's no waste, fraud, and abuse. There are too many fancy pet projects of different people at City Hall, and we need to ensure that we're working on the core basic services of government and serving the people that are paying the taxes. We have duplicative contracts, and many other contracts are out there that are not meeting accountability metrics that we need to ensure that we're cutting and reducing, and we need to approach this in a mixed fashion, both looking for revenue, but also ensuring that we're responsible for our existing funds. Thank you.
Thank you. And David Lee.
The reason we are in this mess is because the mayor did not plan. The mayor should have known that we were headed in this direction a year ago and should have been planning. And the board, as supervisor, board of supervisors, should be calling the mayor on the carpet and department heads to report on why there is so much overspending on overtime, on scandals like SF Safe, other nonprofits that have been awarded multi-million-dollar contracts. Where is the accountability? Well, the accountability is the Board of Supervisors. It is the supervisor who can call a hearing, who has the power to call a hearing and demand that a department head appear before you and answer those tough questions. What's going on that your budget is already 25% over budget and it's only the first quarter of the year? Whose job is that? That is the job of the supervisor, to call on the mayor to make sure that we get accountability. And it is the job of the supervisor to make sure that the public knows that our money is not being well spent. And we don't want to hear at the last minute, because of mismanagement and lack of transparency, that now we have to cut 500 jobs, 1,000 jobs. Where was the planning? Where was the transparency? Where was the accountability? And that's what I would do as a supervisor, is to make sure that for every budget, every department budget, that they are within track, and if they're over budget, to ask those really tough questions and to make sure that every dollar is accounted for so that we don't end up in this situation. And we need to plan, and that's not happening. There's no oversight that's happening at the board, and now we have a crisis.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. All right, we are gonna.
How long is the rebuttal?
1 minute. Yeah. Okay, great.
I'm actually going to use this time to share more about the budget process. So the mayor's department issues instructions for every department in the beginning of the year to cut their budget. And the public, you should be able to hold your supervisor accountable on the budget and make sure they are overseeing this. The public process doesn't happen until June. That is when the Board of Supervisors will hold hearings with many different departments to see where they can cut and also where we can find money to help other parts of the budget stay in shape. And so I do encourage everyone here, come June or the end of May, follow that budget process. I know the supervisors, we don't have a lot of control over the entire budget, but what we do have is the ability to bring community with us to our hearings. We have the power to uplift your voices in that budget process. If you have an opinion on what we need to save in our district, you need to let our supervisors know. Thank you.
Great. We're going to pull in a couple of questions from you, the audience. Thank you so much for contributing. So you will each have 2 minutes to respond to these as well, same format. What are your plans to address speeding and traffic violations in District 4? We're going to start this time with Natalie.
Thank you for that question. So having worked in the city for the last 7 years, I've worked closely with SFMTA to bring in traffic calming measures and slow down traffic in the district that I work for. Where I live here, I noticed that there are not really uniforms for stop signs. In some areas, there are two-way stop signs. In other areas, there are four-way stop signs. And a lot of times, I see people running the four-way stop signs anyway. And so I would love to be able to expand the ticketing power to our MTA folks, the folks that you see every street cleaning day that comes by to ticket your car. I want them to have the power to be able to stop cars that are speeding down our neighborhood. Anytime we do traffic calming measures, we need the buy-in from community. And so I want to be able to bring in that community voice and bridge that gap with the SFMTA so that your voices are included when the MTA tries to propose something. We have different things where residents can always propose traffic calming measures. You can organize your neighbors if you want a speed bump on your block, but we need to make this easier for folks to do. But more importantly, you should be able to rely on your supervisor to advocate for you, especially with the MTA, because the MTA does have a separate governing board that is separate from the Board of Supervisors. And I want to also make sure we improve our transit options in District 4. We have limited lines that go north and south. We also have lines where sometimes we have to wait a really long time in order to take the bus. If you're not living along the N line or the L line or the 7 and you're a senior, you might have to walk even further to get to a bus. So yes, let's improve our transit and let's improve our traffic safety.
Thank you. Albert.
Reopen the Great Highway. I will tell you, one of the reasons for all of this that's going on right now is because those 17,000 cars that traveled Monday through Friday on the Great Highway prior to its close have gone somewhere. They didn't disappear. And traffic studies have shown from SFMTA and SFPD that traffic speeds have gone up. People are running red lights and so forth because they are trying to get through the sunset, through our avenues, because now we've lost the Great Highway and they are still trying to find other routes to go through the sunset. And this is creating more danger for ourselves and endangering our children, people on bicycles, our seniors, and so forth. The other thing I think that is pretty necessary is to really evaluate some of the capital projects we're doing. So what has happened in Terrebonne Street has caused people to not drive on Terrebonne. So now we see cars going down Yoloa, going down Santiago, going down Rivera, going down Vicente, because they have less places to go. They're being pushed up. All modes of transportation are valid, I think, in the sunset. It's just how we live out here on the west side. So if we're given if we're given thoughtful projects if we're given thoughtful construction projects where we have a buy-in, if we have a say, I think we can mitigate a lot of these things because a lot of these projects were put upon us, decisions made to us, without us, and these are the ramifications and consequences of that. Thank you.
Jeremy.
Thank you. First off, the Great Highway, or Sunset Dunes, doesn't go past Sloat anymore. That's going to be a park as well. You cannot go through it all the way. Also, those same studies of traffic danger there was a data scientist who went up to something that Alan said about more traffic injuries, and that was proven, at least to that data science, false. Also, to help traffic safety, I live on a very busy road, and people are running stop signs. They've always run stop signs since I lived here for the 25 years. And it was wonderful. A day of bliss when I saw motorcycle cops on my corner pulling drivers over and over and over again. And that needs to happen more. And with safety too, there's a left turn sign that's going to be taken down on Sloat and 34th. I actually, because of neighbor complaints, I actually stood out there 2 days in a row and I watched the traffic. It is dangerous, you can't see, there's one crosswalk and people are whipping through. It is unsafe. So I think we need to have more of a police presence for speeders, and we need to not have that, we need to keep, I wonder why Caltrans put that, I called Caltrans the other day and I asked why they decide to reverse. Still haven't heard back though. Maybe you can answer.
Since my name was mentioned, I just wanted to respond with the data thing. So we looked at the information on from the city government websites on the traffic injuries from the time period after the closure of Great Highway and compared it to the same period in previous year. That's how we arrived at that information. We're happy to share that information, Jeremy, if you would like to see it.
Share it with everybody, please.
And could I?
No rebuttal, sorry. All right, David Lee, let's get you in here.
I live on 36th in Santiago, right by the Sunset Boulevard. And what I've noticed is I rarely see police cars, police presence. Drivers are angry, they're frustrated, and they drive recklessly. I've seen cars speed down my street turning off of Sunset Boulevard. And there's no deterrent. There's no police presence, there's no motorcycle cop, there's nothing out there where I am for police to be there. I also have a lot of cases in my area. I've heard about these road shows, these car shows that people put on at night. And they're a hazard. They endanger people and property, and are extremely disruptive. And it's because there's no presence, no law enforcement in that area. And why I'm thinking and talking to a lot of law enforcement is that our police station covers the largest geographical area of a police station. We need to look at maybe a substation that is spread out so that the police can be stationed there and have a presence to respond to road shows, to respond quickly to home invasions, to be a presence for traffic calming, just to be seen, visible, so that motorists will recognize there is law enforcement here. You will get a ticket. That's a deterrent. People will behave and drive more lawfully if there's police presence. That's why I think it's important that we should look at a police substation, look at getting more resources more evenly throughout the district.
And Alan Wong.
Traffic safety is one of the most important topics in the neighborhood. Talking to people, they're taking their kids to school or walking along the street, walking their dogs. There's constant concern about vehicles speeding through stop signs, blowing the speed limits, and we need to make people feel safe in our neighborhood so that they can walk on our street, so that they can ride bicycles and drive on our street without feeling they're going to be hit by a vehicle. One of the things is appropriate staffing for our Terrebonne station. They are understaffed. At a recent sideshow that happened in a neighborhood, some of the neighbors brought concerns that SFPD didn't respond soon enough. And immediately after that, I reached out to our Cherwell Station captain to voice my concerns about ensuring that we have adequate response. And I'm committed to ensuring that we have the appropriate staffing in our Cherwell Station. The other thing about MTA is that in order for it to work for us, it needs to listen to the community. Instead of imposing things on the Sunset neighborhood, they need to really listen to people here. They keep on coming up with fancy ideas and different things. And let's do things that make sense and are pragmatic for people. Have any of you guys seen The Neck Down? Why would you ever have something like that you were trying to slow down cars, but you actually could and have them crash into each other? It doesn't make sense at all. So let's have the MTA work on traffic safety measures that work. And I've been listening to different constituents. We recently took a long list of constituent concerns regarding where we can add stop signs, where we could potentially add speed bumps, and we've submitted that list to MTA. I went on a tour with our street director recently throughout the neighborhood to look into different trouble spots in our neighborhood and see where we can make practical improvements.
Thank you, Supervisor. We have time for about 2 more audience questions. We established here that Jeremy is the sole candidate who is out and open about preserving Sunset Dunes. This audience member says, many of us love Sunset Dunes and don't feel represented here. What do you have to say to those of us as you seek to destroy the park we love? All right, first we have David Lee.
I was a no on K from 2024 when it was on the ballot. I've been consistently in support of a compromise that allows both drivers and pedestrians to use the road, a road for everybody. The Great Highway can be that road for everybody. During the weekdays, open, and then on weekends, starting on Fridays, closed. I use the road every day. I'm an avid cyclist. I ride 17, 20 miles every morning through the Great Highway. So I know that during the week, the pattern is that there's not a lot of people. I don't see a lot of people Monday through Thursday. But come Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, there's lots of people. It's a community space. It's a wonderful space. There's music, there's lots of activity. And that's coming from somebody who uses it every single day. I think that we need to return to a compromise. I think that's what voters here want in the Sunset. And it's really important that we get the compromise back on the ballot in November and have an election.
Alan Wong.
For the Great Highway, that's everywhere I go, it's the first thing that's brought up. And it's been stepping in as supervisor after what happened with the Proposition K and the recall has been definitely an interesting experience. And it's just one of the most challenging and divisive issues that I've heard in the neighborhood. And as a supervisor, I really struggle with that, just seeing so many people that have so many strong opinions. And every day as I'm talking to people, I get people that love Sunset Dunes, I get people that want to reopen the Great Highway. And for me, I don't think anybody's necessarily right or wrong on this issue. We just have different perspectives and different priorities and what's important in our lives. So, I have great respect for the people that are passionate about Sunset Dunes. I've walked along on Sunset Dunes with folks to experience it myself. I've seen the community that they build. I've also talked to folks that are drivers that are concerned about their commute to work or traffic issues in the neighborhood. And as supervisor, I have to wrestle between these different opinions, and ultimately, I came to the decision that I did. And I think everybody knows what my position is on it, so I don't need to tell anybody. And I put my measure measured forward on the Great Highway. And I think that it was reflective of the constituents in District 4. And at the same time, I have great respect for the folks that have different opinions than me. As a supervisor, I do think that I'm here to be able to listen to everybody, and at the same time, I have to be able to listen to the different trade-offs and pros and cons of each issue. And that's how I came to the position that I did. So I thank you everybody for sharing their strong opinions with me. I have a lot of respect for everybody.
Albert Chow.
I've been with this fight since day one. I found out about it because Supervisor Joel Engardio told me, but it was a decision that was made by a cadre of people and not because it was town hall. Do you guys ever remember a town hall of anyone asking you whether you want this or not? Whether it went one way or the other, closed or open, did you get a town hall? No. There was not a town hall for Proposition K. And that's what set everybody on fire. This is what has resonated to this day, why we're all here. So I am for reopening the Great Highway to the compromise. But I also see there are beauties there. I hear Jeremy's story. I see what people see here. I've walked the Sunset Dunes. I like that, we have the octopus, the giraffe, the skateboard park, the bicycle obstacle course, the telephone booth, the hammocks, all that stuff is great. We can have that and have the road too. There's a berm that's 40 feet wide just to the east of it that we can re-landscape to give that to the people 24/7. And at the same time, on the weekends, you get the road closure, and that would give everybody, the time that they want to use the road as a pedestrian way, as a park, they can use it then. At the same time, the 17,000 cars need to function. This city needs to flow. People need to get to work. And the cars are being put through and amongst us in our avenues, and that's not good either. These are unintended consequences of a nice idea, but it wasn't fully fleshed out. And it didn't give all of us a chance to have that debate and create a proper opinion on what to do with that roadway. Now that we've lived it, we should respect both sides, and I think there is a good, happy middle ground that would make everybody satisfied. Because remember what it was before that. Everyone was peaceful.
Natalie, your message to Sunset Dunes supporters.
All right, everyone in this room, do this with me. Take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. Anytime we talk about Sunset Dunes or Great Highway, there's always a lot of tension. So I want you to, everyone, just release that tension in your body. That being said, whenever we do change in the city or major change, we need to be more thoughtful in our process. We need to be not rush a ballot measure and then close it in 4.5 months. I've worked for the city for almost 8 years. I have never seen something done so fast. And I tried to change a park name in Visitation Valley. It took me almost 6 years to do that because we were very intentional and bringing in all sides of the community to hear from community. With this whole thing, the city also knew since 2019 that we were going to close Highway 1, aka 19th Avenue, this year with the state to repave it. We also closed Sunset Boulevard in different parts so that we can redo the bus stops and redo the pipes there. Knowing that we had these major capital projects on the horizon, it didn't make sense to close a major thoroughway so fast. Also, without evaluating all the traffic inputs it had on our neighborhood. That being said, if the voters voted to close it, we could have figured out a way to phase it in over years. Figure out how to mitigate the traffic impact. Figure out even if we can finish that pilot study that never got finished because the voters passed that measure. There were other options on the line that we could have looked into some sort of compromise. But all in all, it's important to bring people together for all sides, for any major decisions, and make sure we take the time to put in the thoughtfulness in making that decision. Thank you.
Jeremy, since we know you support the park, I'm going to tweak the question a little bit for you. You know, if this were to go on the ballot again, and if you were elected, what would you do?
I would do everything in my power to keep it as a park. Listen, we've gone through 7 multi-votes, multi-lawsuits, and a lot of people I have spoken with weren't for the park to begin with, and now they are for the park. They're enjoying the park. And I want to say that there's no compromise here because it's made up as a park now. You can't remove the skate ramp. You can't remove all these structures there. It is a park. And I want to say this, I went there on a Monday, and there was actually a lot of people there. I went on a lovely walk, and there were people there. And I also want to say, we talk about the divide in the city, and the divide in this neighborhood. And part of that divide is also the recall election. Albert, you were a main proponent of the recall, and now you're running, and I'm very thankful for your passion, but now you're running for supervisor after you did a recall, and that's not forward thinking. We will potentially have 4 different supervisors in a year period, and that is not leadership, and that's just not future thinking.
All right, I hope this question, David, please.
Can I add that, to Jeremy's point, I do not support recalls, never have supported recalls. I did not, while I didn't live here, when the recall happened, I would have voted no on recalling Joel Engardio. I consistently believe that the recalls do not solve anything.
You have a rebuttal.
I didn't just take it upon myself to just say, hey, I want to be a politician. I was asked overwhelmingly by many people from different circles to run because they believe in me, because I've been here for 50 years and I've done so much for this community, including the recall, because it was the right thing to do. Someone did not represent us well, and it set the Sunset on fire. I've never seen it like this here in our district. And I am happy to run because I feel like I can bring balance back to San Francisco and the Sunset. Thank you.
This last question from an audience member, I hope we can just run through quick. Maybe we'll just do 1 minute each. I also really like this question, so whoever wrote it, let's chat afterwards. Who are you supporting for the congressional primary? We'll go down in order. Alan Wong.
I haven't taken a position on the congressional race. I'm a person.
David Lee.
I have not taken a position on the congressional race.
Jeremy.
Connie.
As an Asian American woman, I would love to be able to see representation of me on the national level representing San Francisco. So I am supporting Connie Chan, and she has also solely endorsed me. And Alex.
I am supporting Connie Chan, proudly.
All right, well, thank you all so much. I know for everyone here, it's been a long year for the Sunset, a recall, resignation of a supervisor after a week, a lot of fights over the Great Highway. So I really appreciate you all coming here and participating, and thank you to your candidates. Good luck.